My husband slapped me across the face again, smashing the cheap $5 birthday hairpin I bought for our daughter onto the floor. A line of floating text appeared before my eyes. Detected that you have suffered immense injustice in your marriage. The marriage counterattack system has awakened. Task assigned, slap the deadbeat bastard twice. And reclaim the $2,000 monthly household allowance he owes you. Word, $50,000 deposited immediately. I froze. The suicidal thoughts that had just surged in my mind were completely suppressed. I looked at my daughter Lily, who had been kicked into the corner by my husband, blood trickling down her forehead. I sprang up like a wild animal, catching him off guard. I swung my arm and slapped him across the face. With every ounce of my strength. Spit, a bloody tooth flew out of his mouth. In the next second, driven by pure manic rage, I grabbed the heavy chopping knife from the kitchen counter and pressed the cold steel right against his throat. Take out your phone, Venmo. The money. Household allowance for this month is $3,000. Wasn't it $2,000? Carter roared. But before he could finish, blood began to bead on his neck as I pressed the blade deeper. Ding. Transfer successful. Congratulations. Your bank account has received $50,000. Task overcompleted. An extra reward of $5,000 has been issued. Staring at the endless zeros on my banking app, my eyes widened to the size of saucers. I gripped my phone, tightly checking the balance over and over again. I even pinched my own thigh hard. It was real. Account balance, $55,000. This wasn't a dream. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. With this system, could I finally save enough money to divorce him? Could I finally be free? Yes, honey. Tasks will be continuously issued. The system's cheerful response made me weep tears of absolute joy. Carter stood a few feet away, clutching his swollen face. He was utterly baffled, glaring at me with a mixture of terror and shock. I looked at this man, my husband of 10 years, who had done nothing but beat and verbally abuse me, with a cold, dead gaze. Still gripping the knife, I stepped over him, scooped up Lily, and retreated into our bedroom. As soon as I locked the door, the screaming outside erupted. My mother-in-law, Brenda, came pounding on the door like a banshee, howling and cursing me out with the filthiest words imaginable. But I didn't care anymore. 10 years of marriage. For 8 of those years, I lived with my hand out, begging for scraps, even though I did endless backbreaking chores every single day. In their eyes, I was just a useless freeloader. I was the lowest scum of this household. My husband treated me like a worthless live-in maid. My mother-in-law despised my daughter because she wasn't a boy. Even today on Lily's birthday, when I used my saved-up grocery pennies to buy her a $5 hairpin from a street vendor, Carter came home from work and screamed at me like a maniac. He literally kicked us both to the ground, in front of pedestrians outside. In that moment, I genuinely wanted to die looking at the balance on my phone. I held my crying daughter tight and slowly closed my eyes. Whether the system was real or not, I didn't want this fucking family anymore. The next day, a torrential rainstorm hit right when Lily got out of school. As usual, Carter's phone went straight to voicemail. With no other choice, I carefully navigated my electric scooter through the blinding rain to pick up my daughter. Just as I got home, completely drenched and looking like a drowned rat, the system's voice chimed in my head. Ding, task assigned. The deadbeat bastard neglected his duty to pick up his wife and daughter in the rain, and is currently driving a female coworker to the mall instead. Please counterattack. Reward $30,000. Posited immediately. I stared blankly at the holographic screen floating in the air. Carter had gotten off work early. He always came home late every single night, pretending to be exhausted to make his mommy feel sorry for him. This only made Brenda torture me more. Whenever she got mad, she would spit venom, calling me and Lily blood-sucking leeches. Looking at my little girl shivering and soaked to the bone. Despite the umbrella, my heart violently clenched. Lily, go take a hot shower first. Mommy has to run an errand. After comforting her, my face darkened. I stormed out of the apartment, hailed an Uber, and headed straight for the downtown shopping district. Following the system's navigation, I quickly spotted the two of them inside a boutique women's clothing store. Carter was grinning like an idiot, leaning intimately against his female colleague as he helped her pick out clothes. They looked like a couple on a honeymoon. Carter, I charged like a bull and slapped him across the face before he could even blink. The mall was packed, and the sharp crack instantly drew a massive crowd. Shoppers gathered around to watch the drama unfold. Carter's face went pitch black. I didn't give a damn. Instead, I raised my voice so the whole mall could hear. There's a fucking hurricane pouring outside. I called you 800 times, and you ignored every single one. I thought you were working hard at the office, but it turns out You were busy being a chauffeur for your little office tramp. Your own daughter is freezing and sick. We only have one car in the family. Other husbands pick up their kids in the rain. But I had to ride a scooter with our daughter. Almost getting into a car crash. Is driving this bitch around that important to you at this point? My eyes turned red and tears streamed down my face. The surrounding crowd instantly changed. Their expressions, they glared at Carter with sheer disgust, whispering aggressively, "What kind of garbage husband is that? How could anyone do something so twisted?" The female colleague was also subjected to a barrage of dirty looks, but she didn't care. She actually looked me up and down, let out a condescending scoff and said, "Carter, so this is your little housewife? You were totally right. She dresses like a hobo. Just an ugly, worn-out hag. We're just colleagues. What's wrong with him giving me a ride?" Looking at her smug, punchable face, I didn't hold back. Smack. I raised my hand and slapped the living shit out of her. "You're a miserable bitch too." Both of their faces were now swollen on one side. They were completely stunned, frozen in place by the sheer violence of my strikes. Reading the intel the system provided, I glared at her and smiled wickedly. "Don't you have a fucking husband? Why are you making my husband drive you around? Did your man drop dead?" I pulled out my phone and dialed the number provided by the system. It connected immediately, and a deep male voice answered from the other end. The female colleague's smug face instantly turned white. With sheer terror, I hung up the phone, stared at her, and held out my hand. "An Uber ride from your corporate office to this mall. At peak hours is $40. Carter has given you 50 times this year. The total fare is $2,000. Pay up." Carter finally snapped out of his shock. He panicked, his face grimacing as he reaching out to grab me roughly. "Sarah, that's enough. Stop acting like a fucking psycho in public." I lunged to snatch my phone, but I easily dodged him. Instead, I reached right into his pants pocket, yanked out his company phone, and opened his company's regional Slack channel. "You crazy bitch. What are you doing?" Carter went absolutely hysterical, watching helplessly as I held down the audio record button. "Sorry to bother you, boss. This is Carter's wife. Carter has slacked off during work hours 7 or 8 times this month, leaving work early claiming he was meeting clients. In reality, he's been driving around his female co-worker, expensing their dates and shopping sprees to the corporate card." Carter and his little tramp's faces visibly drained of all blood. Within seconds, a single question mark popped up in the chat from the big boss, followed instantly by a FaceTime request. "Caller ID, Regional Director." The FaceTime ringtone echoed through the dead silence of the boutique. It was a sharp, corporate trill that sounded like a death knell. Carter lunged at me, his eyes wide with a feral panic. "Give me the fucking phone, Sarah." I sidestepped him with a speed I didn't know I possessed, sticking my foot out. Carter, off balance and desperate, tripped over my ankle and crashed hard into a rack of silk blouses, bringing the whole display down on top of himself in a tangle of metal and expensive fabric. I hit the green accept button and turned the screen toward my face. "Carter? What the hell is going on? Who just sent that voice note?" The regional director, a stern-faced man named Mr. Vance, barked through the speaker. His eyes narrowed as he registered my face. "You're not Carter. Who are you?" "I'm Carter's wife, Mr. Vance," I said, my voice eerily calm. I flipped the camera around. The lens perfectly framed Carter scrambling out from under the collapsed clothing rack, his face bruised and pale, and then panned to his female colleague, who was frantically trying to cover her face with a designer shopping bag. Carter told me he was stuck at the office finalizing the Peterson account. I continued, stepping closer so Mr. Vance had a crystal-clear view of the shopping bags at the woman's feet. Instead, he's at the downtown mall. "Oh, and Mr. Vance? You might want to audit his corporate American Express. I'm looking at a receipt here for a $1,200 Prada handbag that I guarantee is being categorized as client entertainment." "Sarah, shut your fucking mouth," Carter roared, scrambling to his feet. "Carter." Mr. Vance's voice snapped through the phone, so cold it seemed to freeze the air in the room. Carter froze, instantly shrinking into the subservient corporate drone he truly was. "Are you out of your mind? You expensed personal luxury items? And skipped the quarterly review prep for this?" "Mr. Vance, sir, I can explain. My wife, she's mentally unstable. She stole my phone." "Save it," Vance interrupted, his tone laced with absolute disgust. "Both of you, turning your badges to security first thing tomorrow. You are suspended pending a full HR and financial investigation. And Carter, if I find out you've been committing fraud with company money, I'm not just firing you. I'm pressing charges." The call clicked dead. Carter dropped to his knees as if all the bones in his legs had dissolved. The female colleague, whose name tag on her lanyard read Chloe, let out a shrill sob.
"My job.
Carter, you idiot, you said the company card was safe to use. Before Carter could even process the ruin of his career, a thunderous voice boomed from the entrance of the store. Chloe. The crowd parted. A tall, burly man in a soaked mechanic's uniform stormed into the boutique. His eyes were bloodshot, scanning the scene until they locked onto his wife, shivering and sporting a massive, hand-shaped welt on her cheek. Ding. System prompt. Target's husband has arrived on schedule. Good luck. Chloe let out a scream of pure terror. Mark. Mark, wait, it's not what it looks like. Mark didn't even look at her. He marched straight up to Carter, grabbed him by the lapels of his soaked dress shirt, and hoisted him off the ground. You're the rat bastard she's been working late with? Mark growled. Carter stammered, urine visibly spreading down the front of his khakis. Bro, please, it's just a misunderstanding. Mark didn't do misunderstandings. He drew back a massive fist and planted it squarely into Carter's nose. The sickening crunch echoed loudly. Carter crumpled to the floor like a sack of garbage, blood pouring over his lips, clutching his face in agony. Mark turned to Chloe, his face a mask of furious heartbreak. Don't bother coming home. Your shit will be in trash bags on the driveway. Mark turned on his heel and walked out, leaving the two cheaters whimpering on the floor of the boutique, surrounded by a crowd recording the entire spectacle on their phones. I looked down at the man I had served for a decade. He looked so small, so pathetic. Ding. Task perfectly executed. You have successfully ruined the deadbeat's career and exposed his affair. Reward, $30,000 deposited. Extra psychological damage bonus, $10,000. Current balance, $95,000. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply dropped Carter's company phone onto his chest, turned around, and walked out into the pouring rain. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm brewing in my chest. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't cold. I was burning with a glorious, consuming fire. By the time I took an Uber back to our suffocating two-bedroom apartment, the rain had stopped. I unlocked the door, expecting to grab Lily and finally leave this hellhole. But the moment the door clicked open, I heard a sharp, sickening slap, followed by the sound of my daughter crying. My blood turned to ice. I burst into the hallway. My mother-in-law, Brenda, was standing outside the tiny bathroom. Lily, still wrapped in a towel, was backed into a corner, sobbing, a bright red handprint blooming on her small shoulder. You wasteful little rat, Brenda screeched, brandishing a plastic flice water. Who told you to use the hot water for 20 minutes? Do you know how much the gas bill is? Your father works his fingers to the bone, and you and your useless mother just drain us dry. Brenda raised the flice water to strike my daughter again. Something inside me snapped. The last tether to the old, subservient Sarah completely shredded. Ding. Emergency task. A mother's wrath. Defend your cub. Teach the parasitic old hag what fear is. Reward, $50,000 and the truth serum permanent skill. I didn't walk. I teleported. Before Brenda could bring her arm down, I grabbed a fistful of her coarse, tightly permed hair from behind and yanked backward with every ounce of my strength. Brenda let out a squawk like a dying crow as she tumbled backward, landing hard on her tailbone on the cheap laminate floor. The flice water clattered away. Mommy, Lily cried, running into my legs. I scooped her up with one arm, shielding her behind me. Brenda scrambled to a sitting position, her face purple with rage. You bitch. You dare put your hands on me? I'm calling the police. I'll have Carter beat you half to death when he gets home. Call him, I whispered, my voice vibrating with a terrifying calm. I walked into the kitchen, picked up the mop bucket sitting by the sink, filled to the brim with dirty, gray water Brenda had left sitting there since yesterday, and walked back to her. What are you doing? Brenda stammered, her eyes widening as she saw the dead expression on my face. Put that down. I tipped the bucket. Gallons of filthy, foul-smelling water crashed down onto Brenda's head. She sputtered and shrieked, coughing up dirty water as her cheap floral dress clung to her shivering frame. You want to save water, Brenda? There you go. I sneered, crouching down so we were eye to eye. As for Carter beating me, he's a little tied up right now. He just got fired for embezzling company money to buy designer bags for his whore. His nose is broken, and he's probably facing federal charges. Brenda froze, dirty water dripping from her nose. You're lying. My son is a manager. Your son is a broke, cheating fraud, and you're a miserable old parasite living in my house. I spat. Oh, didn't you know? That down payment Carter used to buy this apartment 10 years ago? It was my late mother's life insurance payout. You've been living under my roof, eating food I cooked, acting like you own the place. I stood up, pulling a terrified but safe Lily toward the bedroom. Pack your bags, Brenda. Because I'm selling this place, and I'm leaving you and your precious son out on the street. Ding. Task completed, $50,000 deposited. Truth serum, skill unlocked. Host can now command targets to verbally reveal their deepest secrets in high-stress situations. Current balance, $145,000. I locked the bedroom door. I pulled out my suitcase and began throwing Lily's and my clothes into it. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline. 30 minutes later, the front door violently slammed open. Sarah. Carter's voice was a demonic roar. I heard Brenda wailing in the living room. Carter, look what that psycho did to me. Wait, what happened to your face? Oh my God, Carter. Where is she? Carter ignored his mother, his heavy footsteps stomping toward the bedroom. He kicked the door.
Bang.
Open this fucking door. You ruined my life.
You ruined my job.
I'm gonna kill you.
Bang. Bang. Crash.
The cheap wooden frame splintered, and Carter burst into the room. He looked like a monster. His nose was grotesquely swollen and purple, his clothes were torn and bloodstained, and his eyes were completely bloodshot, manic with rage. He spotted me standing by the bed, my suitcase packed. Going somewhere, he hissed, stepping forward, his fists balled. You think you can just do this to me and leave? I am going to beat you until you can't walk. Then I'm taking your phone, taking whatever money you have, and throwing you on the street. I didn't flinch. I slowly put my hand into my purse and gripped the heavy, steel pepper spray canister I had bought at the mall. But I didn't pull it out yet. I needed to break him mentally first. Truth serum, I whispered under my breath, activating the system skill. My eyes locked onto his. Carter, I said, my voice cutting through his manic, heavy breathing. Before you try to touch me, why don't you tell your mother the real reason you were so desperate to keep your job? Carter halted. His jaw went slack. The system's magic took hold. His eyes rolled back slightly, and despite his visible struggle to shut his mouth, the words began violently tumbling out of him. I took out a second mortgage on this apartment 3 months ago. Carter gasped, his hands clawing at his own throat as if trying to strangle himself to silence.
$82,000.
I blew 50 of it on a crypto scam I saw on Reddit. I spent the rest on Chloe and high-stakes poker trying to win it back. I haven't paid the mortgage in 3 months. The bank sent a foreclosure notice to my office yesterday. The silence in the room was deafening. Behind him, Brenda had crept to the doorway, a towel wrapped around her wet hair. Her face drained of all color. Carter, what did you just say? Foreclosure? The apartment? Carter snapped out of the trance, gasping for air. He looked at me with absolute terror, then turned to his mother. Mom, I didn't mean to say that. She did some witchcraft on me. I swear. You mortgaged the house? Brenda shrieked, her voice cracking. Where are we going to live? I'm 65 years old. Shut up, Mom. Carter screamed back, the stress finally breaking his fragile psyche. It's your fault. You always want money for your stupid bingo nights and your medical bills. I had to find a way to make more. You ungrateful little bastard. Brenda lunged at her own son, scratching at his face. Carter shoved his mother back, violently. Brenda hit the wall, sliding down, sobbing hysterically. The perfect mother-son dynamic I had been tortured by for a decade dissolved into a pit of vipers turning on each other. I zipped up my suitcase. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, Carter. I want full custody of Lily. You're not taking my daughter. Carter spat, wiping blood from his re-injured nose. No judge will give her to a broke, unemployed housewife. You have nothing. I smiled. A cold, genuine smile. I pulled out my phone and pulled up my banking app. I held the screen up to his face. Available balance, $145,000. Carter's eyes bulged. He stared at the numbers, his brain short-circuiting. How? Where did you? I've been preparing for this. I lied smoothly. I have the best lawyers in the city on standby. I have the audio of you admitting to corporate fraud. I have the video of your mistress. And now, I have your confession about the illegal second mortgage. You forged my signature on that, Carter? Because I certainly didn't sign any bank papers. Carter's knees buckled. Forgery was a felony. If you fight me on the divorce, or if you even look at me or Lily again, I whispered, stepping right into his personal space, I will hand the forgery evidence to the bank. I will hand the embezzlement evidence to the police. You won't just be broke, Carter. You'll be in federal prison. And your mother will be sleeping on a park bench. Carter began to hyperventilate. The fight completely left his body. He collapsed against the doorframe, sliding down to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The tyrannical king of the household was reduced to a sniveling, broken child. I took Lily's hand, gripped my suitcase, and stepped right over him. Let's go, sweetie. We're going to a hotel, I said gently. Are we coming back, Mommy? Lily asked softly, holding her favorite stuffed bear tightly. Never again. 2 weeks later. The private dining room of the Four Seasons Hotel smelled of fresh espresso and expensive leather. I sat across from Eleanor Vance, no relation to Carter's old boss, but the most ruthless, expensive divorce attorney in the state. I could afford her retainer in cash thanks to the system, which had been steadily rewarding me for small acts of self-care and reclaiming my life. Bought a new wardrobe? Reward: $5,000. Enrolled Lily in a prestigious private school? Reward: $20,000. Ate a steak dinner without having to cook it? Reward: $1,000. My account balance sat comfortably at over $250,000. I looked entirely different. The worn-out, exhausted hag was dead. My hair was styled, my skin was glowing, and I wore a sharp, tailored navy pantsuit. Eleanor slid a thick manila folder across the mahogany table. "It's done, Sarah," Eleanor said, sipping her coffee. "It was a massacre. Carter signed everything this morning. He surrendered full parental rights to Lily. He waived any claim to alimony or your personal assets." "What about the apartment?" I asked, tracing the rim of my cup. Eleanor chuckled dryly. "The bank foreclosed on it 3 days ago. Because he forged your signature on the second mortgage, we successfully detached you from the debt. The bank is going after him for the remaining balance. He's essentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, with zero assets and a pending criminal investigation from his former employer. And Brenda? She was evicted with him. Last I heard from his miserable defense attorney, they are currently living in a weekly motel on the outskirts of town. Carter is working nights at a gas station to pay for his legal fees, and his mother has entirely turned on him. The police have been called to their motel twice for domestic disturbances." I looked out the massive floor-to-ceiling window at the city skyline. The rain had washed the streets clean. The sun was shining. I opened the folder and looked at the divorce decree. A piece of paper that represented my freedom. The heavy chains that had dragged me through hell for 10 years were finally shattered. Ding, main mission: divorce the deadbeat and reclaim your dignity. Perfect completion. Calculating final rewards. Reward 1: $1 million deposited into host's account. Tax-free. Reward 2: peak physical health and immunity for host and daughter. Reward 3: the system will now enter passive wealth mode. For every day the host lives happily and refuses to compromise her worth, $1,000 will be generated. System message: you survived the darkness, Sarah. You protected your cub. You burned the abusers to ash. Now, go live your life. The counterattack is over. The dawn is yours. Tears welled in my eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of pain or desperation. They were tears of pure, unadulterated relief. The door to the private suite opened. Lily ran in, wearing a pristine little uniform from her new school, her face bright and smiling, completely free of the shadows that used to haunt her eyes. "Mommy, look what I drew in art class," she beamed, holding up a piece of construction paper. It was a drawing of the two of us, standing in front of a big house with a yellow sun in the corner. Carter was nowhere to be found. I picked her up, inhaling the sweet scent of her shampoo, and kissed her cheek. "It's beautiful, baby. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." I looked at the drawing, then back out at the glowing city. We were finally free, and we were never looking back.